Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the show. Yet another episode of Crushing Fantasy Football. I am Bryce Lockridge, your host of the show. All right, guys, today I have some bold predictions for you for the season. Now, I love doing these because I like talking about things that are different. I like talking about things that are a little bit out there and abstract as far as ideas in fantasy football. So this is going to be a fun video. Now, before we get into today's video, I just wanted to remind y'all, if you're someone who's played in my Patreon league before or you've never been in a league with us, we are forming the Patreon League right now for the channel. So if you want to join the Patreon and get in the league with us this year, it's going to be fun. I'm thinking that we do a $75 buy-in, and it's probably going to be a 10-man league, something like $500 for first, $250 for second. I don't know, but it's going to be something like that. Either way, it's going to be a heck of a fun time. And if you want to get in the Patreon League with us, I'm going to leave the link in the Patreon, the link to the Patreon in the comments of this video. So just go down there, join the Patreon. So if you're looking for an additional league to get in, I got you. Get in a league with us this season. It's going to be so much fun. All right, I'm going to start right here with the first bold prediction on my list, and that's going to be Pat Mahomes bouncing back to being the quarterback one. Now, some people might think this is bold, some people might not, but the fact of the matter is Pat Mahomes was the quarterback 10 last season as far as fantasy points per game, and that was the first time in his career where he finished outside of the top 5 in fantasy points per game. So, you look at his entire career, and he's been top 5 in fantasy points per game every single season since coming into the NFL. Even in his down years, he was top 5 in the league as far as fantasy points per game, which just shows how dominant he's been for fantasy. And then he finally just had an overall bust of a season last year at the quarterback position. He really didn't return his ADP value at all because he was coming off a monster season the year before that. He got drafted very, very highly. And especially Superflex, he pretty much totally screwed you over. But look, this is a guy, we have a large sample size, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. All those seasons, he was a smash. He just had one bust season in his first 6 years in the NFL. That's an incredibly high hit rate as far as how often he's been really, really good. And so I think that not only just because of natural regression, but because of the addition of weapons, Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown to the offense, well, I think that this is one of the most loaded Chiefs rosters in the Pat Mahomes era, so I think he's going to bounce back significantly. I have him bouncing back to being the quarterback one in all of fantasy. Next player on my list is going to be Cooper Kupp, finishing as a top 10 overall wide receiver yet again. I think that Cooper Kupp last year, he left a bad taste in some people's mouth because, he missed 5 games. He wasn't on the field. Then when he was on the field, he clearly was not playing at 100%. The last 2 seasons, he's kind of screwed us over only because of injuries, though. If you look at him when he was on the field, he was still pretty darn good. He had 19 red zone targets, which was 9th in the NFL despite missing 5 games. So to be top 10 in the NFL in red zone targets, which is, I talk about this all the time, the most vital wide receiver statistics is targets within the red zone. High-value touches, high-value targets. That's everything for wide receivers. This dude is going to get targeted a lot. He's going to get targeted downfield. He's going to get targeted in the red zone. If he plays a full, healthy 17 games, this dude will. And I'm not saying maybe. I'm saying this dude will finish as a top 10 wide receiver once again in fantasy if he plays all 17 games. If he's injured, that might be a little bit of a different story. But playing in an offense is projected to be one of the better offenses in the NFL with loaded wide receivers around him, with Puka Nacua to at least take some of the attention off him. I don't see any reason why Cooper Kupp shouldn't absolutely eat this year. He's a smash play going in round 3, sometimes slipping to round 4. I see him bouncing back and being a top 10 overall wide receiver this season. And it's not impossible for him to be top 5 either. Next on my list is going to be Josh Jacobs being a top 7 running back. Now, this might be bold to some people. It might not be bold to some people. But the way I look at things is this. He's going as basically like the wide receiver 15 right now in your everyday redraft leagues and an underdog. He pretty much has the same ADP in all draft formats right now. He's going in rounds 5 pretty much in every draft format. And I think he's going to be a top 7 overall running back. I talked about him in my video yesterday. He's got the prototypical workhorse build. He's going to command a little bit more opportunity share than Aaron Jones did, I think, just because of his size and being a bigger back. Not only that, but this is the most loaded offense that Josh Jacobs has ever played in by a long shot. And we saw him be the number 1 running back in all of fantasy in standard formats in 2022, playing in a bad offense. So just imagine this dude's upside in a good offense. If they actually cut him loose and give him enough carries, which I think they will, look for something between like 18 and 22 carries a game for Josh Jacobs, because they started to do that with Aaron Jones last year. Late last season, they started to give Aaron Jones like 20-plus carries a game. They were finally cutting him loose, and not mixing in A.J. Dillon as much because they figured out that A.J. Dillon really just isn't that good. And so, even with Marshawn Lloyd backing him up, I think that Josh Jacobs gets 18 to 22 carries a game and dominates in this offense. Next on my list is I think that C.J. Stroud is going to be a top 3. Yes, a top 3 overall quarterback in fantasy. This is huge, guys. We are super excited about C.J. Stroud this season. The addition of Stephon Diggs. We have Nico Collins and Tank Dell in the offense. Joe Mixon, who can be a stud back out of the backfield, a great pass-catching tight end, and Dalton Schultz. I mean, this team is absolutely loaded. Despite not having rushing upside, I think C.J. Stroud finishes top 3. Now, nowadays in fantasy football, when quarterbacks don't have rushing upside, people pretty much just automatically write them off as far as being a top 2 or 3 overall quarterback because, the top 2 or 3 overall quarterbacks in the past few seasons have all had rushing upside. But let's keep in mind that 2 seasons ago, Patrick Mahomes was the quarterback 1 in all of fantasy, and he pretty much did everything through the air. I mean, yeah, he gave you a little bit of rushing upside, but it was pretty much all done through the air with his 5,200 passing yards. So I think that C.J. Stroud has an outside shot to pass for 5,000 yards this year himself. And as long as he gets close to that number, if he gets 4,800 passing yards, he will finish as a top 3 quarterback no matter what kind of rushing upside he provides. Next and final thing on my list is I think that George Pickens is going to finish as a top 10 wide receiver. A top 10 wide receiver. This dude has Justin Fields or Russell Wilson throwing in the ball, whoever ends up playing. Either way, that's a tremendous upgrade from what he had last season at the quarterback position. We saw what kind of weekly ceiling he possesses last season. This year, considering the fact that he's getting one of the better deep ball throwers in the league in Russell Wilson, and George Pickens thrives on the deep ball, I think that we're going to see a very good connection between these two this season. And I think that George Pickens finishes as a top 10 overall wide receiver in fantasy. This dude's going to smash. I love the outlook for George Pickens this year. Look for him to be a top 10 wide receiver. All right, guys, those are my bold predictions for the season. Hopefully they help you make better draft decisions. All right, see you.